Greetings and salutations, all you truly stunning individuals. It's another epi of Liga Unlock. Eric and Mark here with you guys, and we need to stop just calling this even off-season roundup. Really, it's just what's the latest and greatest on T1, Gumayusi, Hanwha Life, what's going on? And there's been now an actual proper article about it, but we know Peyz coming in to replace Guma, and there were maybe inklings that Keria would have preferred Peyz. Not preferred, but if you couldn't get Guma, you want Peyz. And now it's sounding like it's straight up, this is the dude Keria wanted to play with. And you got to imagine some of that is Peyz beating up on T1 when he was on Genji.
I think that certainly helps a little bit of it. You can go through the past of both of these players and their development and the upbringing, again, when you're looking at the connections between them and where they cross roads, cross paths. And yes, this is a big deal. I think a bigger deal than a lot of people are making it out to be, because this is one of those situations where it almost is impossible to step into the shoes, to replace Gumayusi and what his value, what his worth, what his heart has meant for the T1 organization. But having the stamp of approval, the hand-picking from Keria is something that you can have trust in, you can have faith in as a T1 fan, to look at and say that this is a vote of approval, a stamp of approval that you have to respect and recognize. And for Keria to step out and make a call, make a push to management that this is something that he would prefer is, I think, a strong sign and a good sign for Peyz joining T1.
And I think kind of lost in this, a lot of people have talked about the differing play styles of Peyz and Guma and how their teams respectively play around them. But Peyz is going from playing with Zhuo. From Zhuo to Keria. I don't care if Keria roams a lot more than a lot of other supports and leaves the laning phase maybe early. Zhuo to Keria. You tell me Peyz isn't going to be at a higher level with Keria by his side?
And it wasn't a situation that you looked at with JDG and the failures, the shortcomings of that roster, and you went, oh, well, Peyz just doesn't have it. It was a lot of the situation where you're going, everybody else doesn't have it but Peyz. He's the only guy that has that quality, that factor that makes a difference when you're talking about winning or losing against the quality of teams that you have to go up against in order to be a champion of the LPL, a champion of the LCK. And I think Peyz is primed and poised to do that with the T1 roster. Now, let's look at it. Hasn't captured the LCK in quite a while due to the dominance of Genji, the emergence of a Hanwha Life. So to, have Peyz slot back into this lineup, someone that does bring LCK championship experience as well, I think is another factor that can lead to some confidence, a softer landing for what has been the exodus of Gumayusi from T1.
And again, we got to talk about the synergy just with Doran and Peyz, played together before on Genji, and Peyz, he's got more LCK titles than Keria and Owner combined. So, that's not to say he's better or anything, but it's a different type of experience that'll come in. And I think the synergy looking good on paper for T1. Been a couple of different rumors around what this finalized Hanwha Life roster is going to look like around Guma. We know they re-signed Zeus already, and now we're seeing in, of course, the dramatic Hanwha Life way to announce re-signing Zeka. They make a little skateboarding video, and you only get the news at the very last 5 seconds. But I actually love how Hanwha does these roster announcements.
It too. I think, kind of a little bit old school, a little bit retro with some of these things, but also giving you a little bit of that tidbit, a bit of information at the end. Yes, Zeka coming on through to re-sign with the group to join Zeus and Gumayusi, and what is rumored to be Kanavi in the jungle for Hanwha Life. Of course, Delight returning as well. So that gives us our expected lineup, and that expected lineup, that's good enough to contend, to compete at the top level in the LCK. I think there absolutely are areas that you can pinpoint that you are weaker or maybe less prepared than last year, but there certainly are avenues that you have strengthened, bolstered your team and your team's identity and play style, adding in these players to the lineup.
Yeah, and obviously the Kanavi versus Peanut, I think you can argue what's an upgrade or not. It's more, again, the contrasting play styles. We know Kanavi's going to be a lot more aggressive, be a lot more of the carry-oriented jungler, and Zeka's level is still probably going to be the main question mark for this squad, because even with some ups and downs, Zeus was still pretty consensus a top 2 top laner throughout the majority of the year, at least within the LCK. Zeka, spring and winter, we saw moments of that 2022 DRX run, but towards the latter half of the season, he was kind of a distant third or fourth in this kind of godfather of mid lanes in the LCK.
If the performance is a complete dud, an absolute zero from Zeka, this is still a playoff caliber team. There's more than enough power and strength, even in a premier position like the mid lane, if you don't get it, that this team can get across that type of finish line. But that ain't the goal for a Hanwha Life team. The goal is to succeed, to thrive, to be the champions of the region. And in order to do that, even with a lineup like this, even with the different pros and cons you can associate with power players like Kanavi, like Gumayushi in the bottom lane, it will come down to, once again, can Zeka more often deliver the Zeka that won a world championship before, that went toe-to-toe with the likes of Chovy, with Faker, all these amazing gods that you will have to go toe-to-toe with here in the LCK. If Zeka is up to that task this year, this is a Hanwha Life team that is more than supplemented with the power, with the skill set to be the champions. If he is not at that level, you're really putting yourself up against it and really letting your opponents in Gen G, in a T1, in a potential D plus Keria even, dictate the pace of play, and that is where you are not liking your chances.
And I think Kanavi coming in may help Zeka. I mean, the pressure we know this guy's going to put on early. It's been basically his whole career that he's been outside of the LCK since his Griffin loan early days, but now here he is coming back. And how about now, going to have the top of the table jungler matchups of Kanavi, Owner, and Canyon. I can't wait to see this new Hanwha jungler matching up against those two.
It's just like Muhammad Ali, George Foreman, Clint. You're throwing all the heavyweights right into the ring right away, is the way the jungle position is in the LCK, especially with Kanavi replacing Peanut. I think there is something to be talked about for the team facilitating and team helping type of play style that Peanut evolved into over the course of his veteran career. But when you look at what Kanavi can provide and the explosions and the theatrics of it, you have to be betting on those advantages, those leads that are created out of those skilled plays, being the things that help accelerate the rest of this roster as well, to help get those things out as you're talking about. I think that is going to be one of those things where it can go either or, but I think the positive angle of the synergy between Kanavi and Zeka could be one of the most explosive duos you would have in the LCK.
And I mean, extend that to the top side. A combo of Zeus Kanavi as a 2v2 top side has potential to be most lethal, not just in the LCK, but you can extend that to internationally, going toe-to-toe against anybody in the LPL. So no question, Hanwha going to be right there as main contenders yet again with Gen G and with T1. The main contenders from the LCP we became very familiar with, performing on the international stage to a highest degree, but already heard that Talon Esports, out of the league, ran out of money basically, somehow, some way, and now we're getting the announcement. First, it was Kaiwing, no longer with CFO. Now we're hearing Junjia and HongQ no longer. So this team fully getting blown up. And all of a sudden, the LCP, you were feeling so good about this region, and you lose those two teams, and you're going, oh man, are they still going to be as good?
This is pretty incredible that this is where things have played out to be at this type of crossroads for the LCP, because you better believe it, this is going to be a massive make or break type of year, and whether that's fair or not, it doesn't really matter, because that's how things are going to play out with a squad like CFO and the success that they had. Pretty much, yes, as you laid out, almost completely getting blown up at this point, the way things are going to go, where players are going to depart. And it is, I feel so bad for the LCP fans, because this has been such a whirlwind of a year for them to build up the reputation and the pedigree of the league and the prestige, and to be so hopeful for what could happen in the next couple, very short term, as far as where that progression might lead you to and what heights you might achieve, only to get taken out here in this top squad, your top squad taken out like this and fall apart. Levi retiring, one of the absolute pillars of the region and that territory. stepping aside, this is going to be a very different year, very different scene within the LCP.
And we know it's usually these star players heading over to the LPL for a payday. We were hoping, praying it wouldn't happen for a guy like HongQ, but immediately hearing this rumored JDG roster, we know Tabe dipped from anyone's legend to probably go coach with JDG when BLG things fell through, but looking like it might be Zhaoju in the top lane, who was one of the actual standouts still for JDG. Junjia and HongQ coming together as that mid-jungle duo over, and then Gala and Vampire in the bot lane. And I know neither of us want to see this LCP talent going back to the LPL, but that looks like a interesting, lots of potential JDG lineup.
It's an unfortunate reality that just no matter the success or how much ground you've gained this year as a region, as an individual organization in CFO, it's not at the level where you can compete with the wallets, with the checkbooks of a region like the LPL, especially for top tier talent like Junjia and HongQ have proven themselves to be, and that is why they get this deal. And I think out of all the ones in this scenario where I wasn't hoping this would come through, having Junjia go with HongQ does make me feel a little bit better about this one from the HongQ perspective. You feel that there can be a little bit more familiarity, some comfort levels. It won't be so strange moving over and taking on this new challenge when you've got someone you can trust, and especially with the skill set that you can trust in, like Junjia brings to the jungle. And knowing that you're coming in, Gala, Vampire is a bottom lane, pretty excited about what they could possibly do with that, again, combined with Junjia and HongQ. And as you mentioned, Xiao in the top side, still someone that did provide enough of those sparks of hope, enough of sparks of good gameplay that you wanted to see him moving forward for this JDG team. You add in Tabe, rumored coming over from anyone's legend, and this is a JDG that I think is more so primed and in a better position to recapture themselves as a contending team in the LPL.
At least more consistency and confidence than, even when we had Scout and the boys on the lineup last year. Other bit a little roundup to get to. One of the guys who was linked before Zeka re-signed, there was still people saying maybe there's a BDD buyout on the horizon, but Zeka re-signs. Looks like BDD probably going to be locked in with KT alongside Cuz, but the problem is what KT looks like they're doing with the bot lane. Dom and Peter already out. KT looking to sign Ghost and Paulo. And listen, Ghost has, as of recently, role swapped, played in Brazil, I believe he was in, or LATAM, and he is a support. So that's 280 carries, and I've seen Aiming is the name linked to go to KT, and if that's how things play out, poor BDD, poor Cuz.
How do we go to the World Finals, finally show and say
One game away.
And we're running it back with Ghost and Palulu as the support options and Aiming as our ADC. Oh,
Viper was a free agent. Guma's on the market,
and look, I understand it's a negotiation thing. It is expensive, all these other things. But when it all comes down to it, and you do, ask yourself, do you really think you can contend with the T1, with the Gen G lineup? Hanwha Life over here. No, this lineup ain't getting it done. This lineup is certainly not going to be anywhere close to the level of even that we got from this past year's lineup, is what I would say with this one. Very disappointed that this is how things are going to be moving forward. I was very hopeful that we would see a little bit of action, something going on here to shake up the KT roster. This is not the shakeup that I think anybody asked for.
Yeah, and I think especially the Herculean levels of gameplay that you got from BDD and Cuz throughout the World's run and the playoff bracket, you can't expect them to replicate that again for another whole year, and that's the main reason that KT were having such a deep run at Worlds. A couple LEC teams also finalized that probably will not shake the needle or shake up the entire league. BDS, we got Rooster, Bukata, Nuke, Paddock, and Trimby returning back. Paddock and Rooster for the double bird combo. 2 Korean imports coming in, and then a couple French Frenchman in the mid jungle, and Trimby in the bot lane. That's a good bottom bottom 5 team.
Yeah, I'm very much so not seeing exactly what the vision is here, where they're imagining the power, the strength, the better points of this roster is going to come through.
Just import Koreans. That's the secret.
I guess that seems to be what they're going for, but I don't think these are either the guys to move the needle in that type of direction for a squad like BDS, even on the import scale. And then I will say at the very least, I am hopeful for Trimby because I think that he is someone that did have a better year than people would have expected looking at the results and looking at where he was playing. But I think for Trimby to get back in the LEC and back in a starting position here in the LEC is something that I'm looking forward to him getting this opportunity once again.
Other side, we have Heretics also making a lot of changes. Only 2 guys returning in Sheo and Stend. Trayson getting the promotion from their Las Heretics ERL squad. Ice, we're familiar with, who was just on BDS. And then Saren, who's been a Turkish mid laner that we've seen around for a little while. And again, maybe you're saying these are upgrades probably for Team Heretics. At least Ice coming in to be paired with Stend. But again, cracking outside of like the bottom 4 now, we'll say, because there's going to be 12 teams in the winter split for the LEC. Not seeing it.
No, and I'm certainly not seeing it out of the gates early for a squad like this Team Heretics team. This is going to be one of those ones where if it comes together, if you are able to get the most positive performances out of every 5 roles, it's going to be happening towards the later part of the year. So this is one of those ones where you have to build yourselves up, build up that momentum, build up that skill set and preparation for that type of one is where my goals, my eyesight is set on for a squad here like the Heretics and what making these type of moves, because at the outset of the LEC, I don't think either one of these organizations' moves are going to sell you or move that needle towards being a more competitive squad at the top end of the LEC.
If you are a fan of the LCS and don't want to wait so long to watch the rebrand fully take effect in January, fret not. Because less than a month away, 3 weeks basically, getting the announcement that Cloud9 and Team Liquid will be taking part in the Kespa Cup this year and going alongside an all-star squad from Japan and Vietnam to bring the total to 14 teams at this event. So you get Lord Morgan, easing into things, matching up in the All-Korea matchup. And this is kind of exciting and feels like the early, LCK where you had CLG EU competing in it for times for boot camping. I love seeing this.
This is taking this Mickey Mouse tournament to a whole nother level is the way the Kespa Cup is leveling up here, adding this international flavor level of competition to it and getting this early preview that it has always served as is going to be something I'm very excited about. And I'm sure many other LCS fans are as well. Not, necessarily expecting crazy results or anything like that, but just simply to get an early look, a good early test and face check against some of these other regions with 2 teams that are going to be highly touted teams in the LCS, in both Cloud9 retooling with APA and Team Liquid retooling without APA on their squad. So absolutely, very much so excited that both of these teams are taking this opportunity, and we will get a good early look at both of them and how they are functioning before the season, before that first split to first stand gets underway.
And this is, if you followed Kespa Cup in the past, it's very rare that the top teams are playing any starters. Like, definitely not all the starters. They might have a couple, but there's almost always at least 2 to 3 substitutions for the major squads. So maybe there's potential for some of these NA teams to actually make some noise. And it is very much a Mickey Mouse tournament because the broadcasting exclusively on Disney Plus, which is maybe the craziest angle of this whole announcement.
A very wild, kind of out of left field type of attachment to an announcement like this. I'm wondering if this is just a one-off type of situation. Is this Disney and, making a move, making a plan to move into more type of esports live event coverage type of situation. We'll have to see how this all plays out. But at least you know exactly where you got to go to get the streams. No longer in the eras. Although I will say in the last year or two, it's gotten better for the YouTube side of things. But certainly in the past, having to fish through all sorts of websites to find the streams for it. Not the case anymore. You know exactly where it's going to be.
Yeah, and listen, Kespa has some pretty insane rules in terms of content too. Like I've put up some videos, highlights from it, and they're pretty quick to flag that stuff. So we'll see if it changes with Disney Plus. Seems unlikely that a mega conglomerate like them will be any more lenient, but at the very least, shows there's still interest, especially in the South Korean market for some of these esports. So that's a win for any region. Doesn't matter to have a major company like that interested.
Yeah, it's important, right? Nobody wants to be talking about these things. It's not exciting talking about these things or moving forward on these things, but they are absolutely things that help the life cycle, that help prop up and help the growth of a game, an esport like League of Legends right now. And making partnerships like this one, especially on a broadcast side, can be very helpful and can be important things moving forward. So again, outside of just the LCS interest that is added to this Kespa Cup tournament, looking forward to seeing how things play out, what the broadcast is going to be like here in this next couple of weeks. Because yes, very shortly, underway very soon. If you have been dying for live League of Legends actions, look no further. Kespa's got you covered.
December 6th, I believe. 3 groups that will be broken up into single round robin before some knockout round. But, usually Kespa Cup, we're like, take it with a grain of salt, doesn't actually mean anything. But I'll tell you, if Cloud9 or Team Liquid actually go even close to deep in this tournament, the Hopium will be off the charts for a preseason meaningless tournament.
It'll be at whole new levels. You'll have to find brand new ways to describe just how hypey we'll be about our NA squads. The LCS is back, baby, if we're dominating at the Kespa Cup. If we're getting stomped by teams without their starting players, it's just the Kespa Cup. Mickey Mouse
it can only
tournament
go up
anyways.
from here. If that's the case, they'll only improve throughout the year. But you already heard teams, managers in the LCS talking about potentially boot camping in Korea in the preseason, and that's essentially what this is, except with much more meaningful games than scrims could ever be. So excited to see how it plays out. But that is it today for League Unlock. Eric and Mark here with you, absolute beauties. Thanks so much for hanging out, and we will catch you on that flippity flip.